Welcome to the realm of science fiction. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more content. Enjoy listening. Jack Miller had spent years as a respected figure in the Alien Society, a group dedicated to the exploration of extraterrestrial life and the mysteries of the cosmos. Yet, as time wore on, his enthusiasm waned. Life had become routine, dull, and lacking the spark that once fueled his days. Now, in his later years, Jack felt increasingly disconnected, not just from his professional past, but from the Alien Society itself. He decided it was time to step away. The weight of his resignation seemed unavoidable, and when he confided in one of his closest friends from the Society, he was met with staunch opposition. "You can't just leave," his friend protested. "You're the backbone of this group. If you go, we lose more than just a member. We lose our guiding light." Jack sighed, unmoved by the plea. "I've done my part. It's time for me to step aside." But his friend wasn't one to give up easily. "Give me one day," he insisted. "If I can't change your mind by tomorrow, I won't argue further." Jack raised a brow. "And how exactly do you plan to do that?" "I have a surprise for you. Just be home this afternoon and you'll see." Reluctantly, Jack agreed. His friend's determination intrigued him, though he doubted anything could reignite his fading passion. The hours ticked by slowly. Jack paced his modest living room, glancing occasionally at the clock. When the doorbell finally rang, he opened the door, expecting something mundane, a motivational speech perhaps, or a gift of some sort. Instead, he found himself staring at a woman unlike any he had ever seen. She was strikingly beautiful, yet undeniably otherworldly. Her shimmering skin had a faint luminescence, and her emerald-green eyes seemed to hold the secrets of the universe. She wore a flowing, silver-toned garment that moved as though it were alive, shifting subtly with the light. "Hello," she said with a warm, disarming smile. Her voice was soft yet resonant, carrying an almost hypnotic quality. Jack blinked, momentarily at a loss for words. Hello. Can I help you?" "I'm Phoenix," she replied, stepping into the threshold with an air of calm confidence. "I believe your friend sent me." Jack's initial surprise gave way to a mix of curiosity and relief. Of course, this had to be part of the promised surprise. "Well, Phoenix," he said, regaining his composure. "Welcome. Please, come in." He led her to the living room, where she settled gracefully onto the couch. Jack excused himself briefly to fetch drinks, returning moments later with 2 steaming mugs of coffee. He handed one to her, and as she took it, her slender fingers brushed against his. The faintest jolt of warmth passed between them, leaving Jack slightly bewildered. As they sipped their drinks, Jack found himself studying her. Everything about her exuded a quiet elegance. Yet there was an undeniable mystery to her presence. "I wasn't expecting company like this," he admitted. Phoenix's smile widened. "Sometimes, the best surprises are the ones you can't anticipate." After a brief silence, she tilted her head, a playful glint in her eyes. "Let's play a game," she suggested. Jack raised a brow. "A game?" "Yes," she said, her tone light and inviting. "Do you have a bottle?" He retrieved a sleek, white bottle from a nearby shelf, and she placed it on the floor between them. "Spin the bottle," she explained, "but with a twist, truth or dare." Jack chuckled at the idea. It was so simple, almost juvenile, yet oddly fitting for the surreal nature of the evening. He agreed, and the game began. At first, the questions and dares were lighthearted. Jack revealed his fondness for stargazing, while Phoenix shared a cryptic story about a journey across the stars that left Jack both intrigued and skeptical. As the game progressed, the questions grew bolder, the dares more personal. Jack found himself relaxing in her presence, drawn to her in a way he couldn't quite explain. When it was Phoenix's turn again, she chose dare with a mischievous glint in her eye. Jack leaned forward, his curiosity piqued. "All right, I dare you to surprise me." Without hesitation, Phoenix leaned in and kissed him. It was a brief, delicate kiss, but it sent a surge of energy through Jack's entire being. He froze, unsure how to react, until she pulled back and met his gaze with an amused expression. "That was Unexpected, he stammered. Phoenix laughed softly. You did say you wanted a surprise. The game continued, but their focus began to shift. They shared stories, dreams, and vulnerabilities. Jack opened up about his disillusionment, confessing that he felt like his best years were behind him. Phoenix listened intently, her gaze steady and compassionate. You've given so much to others, she said. Perhaps it's time for someone to give back to you. Her words resonated deeply with Jack. For the first time in years, he felt seen, not as a leader, not as a member of a society, but as a person. As the night deepened, the bottle spun one final time. Phoenix leaned forward, her voice soft yet firm. Truth or dare? Jack's lips curved into a smile. Neither, he said. Just you. With that, he leaned in and kissed her, this time with more certainty and passion. It was a kiss that spoke of longing, of hope, and of new beginnings. As their lips parted, a silence settled between them. But it wasn't uncomfortable. It was the kind of silence that carried unspoken understanding, a mutual recognition of something profound. Jack rested his forehead against hers, his eyes closed as he let the moment linger. Phoenix, he whispered, her name tasting unfamiliar yet comforting on his tongue. She opened her eyes and smiled softly, her gaze steady and unyielding. Yes, I don't know what this is, Jack admitted, his voice low but steady, but I know it's something I don't want to let go of. Phoenix tilted her head, her expression thoughtful. Then don't. Jack felt a warmth spread through his chest, a sense of reassurance he hadn't felt in years. They stayed there for a while, close but quiet, the weight of their shared connection grounding them both. The night deepened, and Jack found himself unwilling to let her out of his sight. He gestured toward the couch. Stay a while longer. We don't have to figure everything out right now. Phoenix nodded, settling back into her seat as Jack took the spot beside her. They talked, their voices weaving through the air like a melody. Jack shared fragments of his life, stories of childhood mischief, tales of his early career, and the memories that shaped him. Phoenix listened intently, her eyes never leaving his, occasionally interjecting with curious questions or soft laughter. When Jack hesitated, unsure if he was sharing too much, Phoenix placed a hand over his. Every story you tell makes me understand you more, she said gently. Encouraged, Jack continued. He spoke about the alien society, his struggles with purpose, and the emptiness he had been feeling. I thought leaving would fix it, he said, his voice tinged with regret. But now, I'm not so sure. Phoenix's fingers tightened slightly around his. Purpose isn't something you lose, Jack, she said softly. Sometimes it just changes shape. Sometimes it waits for you to see it in a new way. Her words settled over him like a bomb. Jack realized how much he had underestimated the impact of her presence. She wasn't just there to persuade him to stay in the society. She was there to remind him of what he was capable of what he could still become. Jack leaned back, his thoughts quiet for the first time in what felt like ages. He studied Phoenix as she sat beside him, her serene expression betraying none of the complexities he imagined lay beneath the surface. There was something magnetic about her, something that pulled him out of himself and into the present moment. Why me? He asked finally, his voice soft but weighted with curiosity. Why did my friend send you? Phoenix's gaze met his, unwavering and steady. Because he knew you needed more than words. He knew you needed to feel something real. She paused, her voice lowering slightly. And maybe so did I. Jack was caught off guard by her honesty. He'd been so focused on his own struggles that it hadn't occurred to him that Phoenix might have her own reasons for being here, for staying. I've spent years looking outward, Jack admitted. At the stars, at the possibilities out there. But somewhere along the way, I stopped looking at myself. Stopped believing I could change. Phoenix tilted her head, her expression softening. Change doesn't have to mean leaving everything behind, she said. Sometimes, it means finding new ways to connect with the things you've always cared about. Her words struck a chord deep within him. Jack felt a sudden urge to hold onto this moment, to let it anchor him in a way nothing else had in years. I don't know where this leads, he said, his voice steady but quiet. But I want to find out. Phoenix smiled, a small but genuine curve of her lips that seemed to light up the room. Then we'll find out together. The simplicity of her statement carried a weight that Jack couldn't ignore. He felt a flicker of something he hadn't experienced in years: hope. It wasn't the overwhelming, grandiose kind of hope he'd chased in his youth, but a quieter, steadier kind. The kind that grew roots. As the night stretched on, their conversation shifted again, moving from weighty confessions to lighter topics. They shared small laughs, fleeting glances, and the kind of easy companionship that felt as natural as breathing. When the first rays of dawn began to seep through the curtains, Jack realized how much time had passed. He didn't feel tired, though. For the first time in years, he felt alive. Phoenix noticed the light, too, and glanced toward the window. "The night always feels like it passes too quickly," she murmured. Jack nodded, his gaze lingering on her. "Maybe, but it leaves room for something new." She looked at him then, her expression unreadable, but filled with a quiet intensity. "Do you feel ready for that?" Jack took a deep breath. "I don't know," he admitted, "but I want to try." Phoenix nodded, her expression softening as if she understood the weight of his words. She leaned back slightly, her gaze still fixed on him. "Trying is the first step," she said quietly. "And sometimes it's the hardest one." Jack let her words sink in, realizing how true they felt. For years, he had been stuck in a cycle of doubt and inertia, convincing himself that nothing he did could matter anymore. Yet here he was, feeling something he hadn't in what seemed like forever potential. The room felt lighter, as though the tension that had weighed on him earlier in the evening had been lifted. Jack shifted slightly, resting his arm on the back of the couch as he watched Phoenix. "What about you?" he asked. "What do you want to try?" Phoenix hesitated for a moment, her expression contemplative. "I want to see if I can belong," she said finally, her voice tinged with vulnerability. Not just to a mission or a purpose, but to someone. Her honesty caught Jack off guard, and he felt a pang of empathy for her. "I think you already do," he said, the words slipping out before he could second-guess them. Phoenix's lips curved into a small, grateful smile, but she didn't respond right away. Instead, she reached for the now-empty coffee cup on the table, turning it slowly in her hands. The motion seemed to center her, and when she finally looked back at Jack, there was a spark of determination in her eyes. "You've spent your life searching for something bigger than yourself," she said. "But maybe what you've been looking for has been right here all along. In the connections you make, in the way you touch people's lives." Jack felt his chest tighten. Her words resonated deeply, echoing thoughts he hadn't been able to articulate before. He nodded slowly, his voice steady as he replied, "And maybe I just needed someone to remind me of that." They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of their shared understanding hanging in the air. Phoenix finally broke the quiet, her tone lighter now. "So, what's next for you, Jack Miller?" Jack chuckled softly, the sound feeling foreign and yet welcome. "I guess I take it one day at a time, and maybe I stop running from the things that scare me." Phoenix's smile widened, and she tilted her head slightly. "That sounds like a good plan." The morning light continued to filter into the room, casting a warm glow over the space. Jack felt a sense of peace he hadn't known he was capable of. He glanced at Phoenix, and the realization struck him he didn't have to face this new chapter alone. "I know it's early," he said, a hint of playfulness in his voice. "But how do you feel about breakfast?" Phoenix laughed softly, a sound that sent a pleasant warmth through him. "I think that sounds perfect." Jack stood, offering her a hand to help her up. As their fingers intertwined, he felt a quiet but powerful sense of hope take root. For the first time in years, he was ready to face the unknown, and he couldn't think of anyone better to face it with than Phoenix. As they moved toward the kitchen, the promise of something new lingered between them, fragile yet unshakable. Whatever lay ahead, Jack knew one thing for certain: he wasn't walking into it alone.